Thanks for taking the time to check this video out. Hopefully I can keep this as quick and painless as possible. So what I want to do today is go through and build some vertical slices of functionality in a sample app. And the sample that I want to use is Pet Clinic. And Pet Clinic has a long history, but I believe it started with a J2EE demo, and then it got converted to Spring, and there's a WebAssembly version of it. And so I want to see what it feels like to create one in Akka, and hopefully assisted by some decent AI. So the first thing I do when I want to create a new Akka project is I run Akka code init, and I can choose a sample that I want to start with. And I could create, an agentic one, a couple of different ones with agents, some Kotlin, some good stuff. But I want to start from scratch just so I can, see what that experience is like. So do I want to use the empty project sample? Yes. Let's call this Pet Clinic. And I'll use 2 here just in case. I can't remember how many of these samples I've got lying around. So it wants to know what AI assistants I use. And in this case, I'm going to use Junie, mostly because that's the only AI I have any quota left with. So we'll use that one for now. AI assistance has been skipped. Okay, so we'll go to Pet Clinic 2. Let's just make sure this builds, make sure that, everything in my environment is working properly. So that worked okay. So let's start IntelliJ here. And I'm going to switch, let me just close all these other things here. Junie can go away, and I'm going to open a new project, or open my existing project here, code demo Pet Clinic 2. This window. Oh, yes, I want to trust. Fine. Okay, so now I have my MD Pet Clinic application, and I've been given an Akka context directory, and this essentially gives the guidelines and a documentation necessary to tell the AI assistant how it should go about creating Akka components and applications. And I also have these 3 folders here. I've got API, application, and domain. And this is generally what we recommend you do for splitting up the code in your application. API is essentially the exposed endpoints, your HTTP, your gRPC, MCP, number of other acronyms. Application code is where you put the traditional Akka components like views, entities, and workflows. And domain is where the business logic goes. So I'm going to start off with Junie here. And what I want to do is get it started with a couple of really quick wins, because otherwise, Junie's going to get sad if it doesn't get it right. So I'll start with a couple of small things, and then once it has more and more context, I should be able to move into asking it to do bigger and bigger things. So for the Pet Clinic, the first thing that I think I want is an entity for veterinarian. So I'm going to start typing what it is I want Junie to give me, and we'll see what happens. I'm asking it to do a sealed interface thing just because sometimes when it doesn't have enough context, it will, revert to doing things in, old school Java where it's not using records, it's just using the static classes and so on. So I've told it the entity I want, I've told it the commands that I want and the events that I want. And now I want to make sure that it gets some of the fields right, because it might guess sometimes when it guesses about the domain fields that I want, it goes and tries to throw everything from a fully implemented application in there, and I want to start small. All right, we'll see if this is enough. I'm just going to push go here. And actually, whoops, you know what? I think, yeah, the think more. Okay, here we go. So sometimes what happens is Junie will uncheck think more, and I'll wonder why I'm suddenly getting terrible responses. And it's because, for whatever reason, it's decided to think less. So I wanted to make sure that this is, giving me the right quality here. So generally what I get with Junie and with most of these models is when you tell them to think ahead or plan, you end up with it attempts to figure out the structure of the project, the structure of what you want, then it will try and, infer how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And it should use the right, idiomatic code. It should be following the information that's been given to it inside the Akka context directory. And this can take quite a while, especially if I have the think more button enabled. So I'm not sure if I should. Oh, that's interesting. We'll see if it got that right. So veterinarian entity here, ID, name, deleted. No, this is not right at all. Roll that back. Roll back. This was garbage. Okay. So I think what I may have done is asked it to do a little bit too much. So let's see if I can start slower here, or start smaller. Okay, this is smaller. What I'm trying to do is, give it some basic patterns to follow from being in an empty project. So what I'm asking for now is just the domain objects for, or the domain types for vet command. And hopefully I'm going to have a sealed interface vet command that will have the create vet, update vet, and delete vet variants in it. And it seemed to have done that pretty quickly. But again, last time it was done quickly, it gave me nonsense. So we'll see what we got here. Sealed interface vet command, that's good. I don't normally do permits, but whatever. I don't judge. And so I've got create vet, update vet, and delete vet. And so these all look like exactly what I wanted. So now that I have a command pattern established, I can probably do something like patterns to add a event. Okay, so now what I've done is I'm just asking for vet event. And hopefully there's enough of this pattern by using the sealed interface and the record that it'll pick up on that and duplicate that pattern when it's creating the vet event interface. And inside the vet event interface, what I want is vet created, vet deleted, and vet updated. And so hopefully you can probably guess that the next thing I'm going to want to do is create the veterinarian entity. But when I tried to uh, start that from scratch, I don't think it quite had enough patterns. So let's see what we get for vet event. Again, it's using permits. I guess that's fine. I've got vet added, vet delete, vet updated, and vet deleted. And so that's good. So I have the command versions, which are imperatives, and I have the event versions, which are past tense verbs. So excellent. So let's see if we can do an entity now. All right, you know what? I'm just going to call it vet entity because I can't spell good enough, well enough to type out veterinarian over and over again. So let's see, we'll call this a vet entity. I'm giving it a quick example here, telling it to create a method called create vet. If I don't do that, sometimes it creates these, catch-all handlers for all possible types of commands, and I don't really like that style. Okay, so we'll see if this works. I'm asking it now for an entity, and I've asked it for the vet entity, not veterinarian, because nobody wants to see me spell that wrong all the time. And so hopefully what it's going to do is create a method per variant of the vet command. And in each of those, it will emit the appropriate event. And I should then get an apply event command or an apply event method that updates the internal state. And, apparently it has already finished doing most, if not all, of the work. Build completed. Okay, so it says it got that. Vet entity. Not sure if I like this. Yeah, see, it's created handle here, which is not the right override, and it didn't and it's not implementing or extending an event sourced entity with the. Okay, let's see if I can correct it. So here I'm being a little bit specific. I'm asking it, I'm telling it that I want the vetted entity to be in the application folder, and I'm reminding it that it needs to implement, needs to be needs to be an event sourced entity, And event sourced entities take as type parameters the type of internal state and the type of events. So hopefully it's picked up on that from what I typed. It's already is looking in the project for examples of things that already extend event sourced entity, and it's not finding any of those. So it's going and digging in for more context. Well, I just saw a vet entity appear in the application folder. We'll see if it disappears from domain. See if I can get a sneak peek on what it's building here. Yeah, extends event sourced entity vet event. That looks better than it did before. There's the empty state override. That's good. We've got the apply event override. Also good. Not sure I like this, the public vet entity and the super, but I wonder if it'll remove that in one of its error handling steps. Apparently not. So it didn't actually create no state change by default. That's, yeah, not too pleased with this. So I'm going to roll that back, go back in here, roll back the event source entity. Okay, so now I'm back to having my good command and my good vet event. Let's try some more baby steps. Okay, so I'm going to try and hold its hand a little bit more. And this time what I've done is I've told it to create a domain record in the domain folder, and I wanted it to create a class called vet. This way I now have a data type for both state and events so that I can be more explicit when I ask it to create an event sourced entity in the application folder. All right, it thinks it's done. So let's see, vet, public record vet, string ID, string name. Okay, that will do. So yeah, usually there's a like accept or commit, but I'm not sure if that's all right. Anyway, so that's there. So now I should be able to hold its hand a little bit through creating the event sourced entity. Let's see here. All right, we'll see if that actually does anything. I've told it to create an event sourced entity, and I've given it the name of the entity, and I've given it the cheat sheet telling it what data types I want it to pass as parameters for the generic type. So hopefully this works, and hopefully I don't have to manually write the first event sourced entity in the project, but um, that may be something I have to do. Oh, here we go. So you can see on the right here, it's opened event sourced entities.html.md. This is a file that's sitting inside Akka context. Again, hopefully I won't have to sit here telling jokes or anything else like that. If it gets too long, then maybe I'll just speed it up and I'll be silent as Junie does its work. Of course, every time I say, I'm gonna speed things up because it's running too slow, Junie finishes up. So I wonder if it knows what I'm doing here. All right, let's see. We got vet entity. Event extends event sourced entity, vet event. That's excellent. It put the context in here, which is good. It's got the empty state. Effect vet for create vet. That's good. It's got an error branch for the vet already exists, so you can't create the same vet twice. If ID or name are missing or empty, then it gives an error there as well. I think we can probably refactor that to make it a little bit more idiomatic, but I'll take what I can get for now. There's the event that's getting persisted. Update vet, same thing. An error if the vet is not found. That's what I would want. If somehow the command got routed to the wrong entity, it won't update it, which is a guard I probably wouldn't have found until I started doing edge case testing in unit tests. And then the last one here is delete vet. We use the delete vet command. You can't delete a non-existent vet. And then again, if you attempt to route the delete command to the wrong entity, it rejects that as well. So I'm actually pleased it does that. Like I said, I probably would not have found that particular edge case until I got into unit testing. Okay, and so it deletes its internal state by setting the internal state to null. And since we have these current state equals null checks on all of these, deleting the vet should be a pretty safe operation. So I like where this is going. Now I should be able to do something really cool and see if we can create an endpoint. Okay, so here I'm being pretty loose with my instructions. I'm asking it to create an HTTP endpoint for the vet event sourced entity. and I wanted to do create, delete, update, and query. And so query is an interesting one because it did not yet expose a a get vet operation from the entity. And I told it to create the request and response types locally within the API folder. This is another one that might potentially snag it up, but what I want is the data types for the API to be different than the data types used that go in and out of the entities. And it might seem like that is a bit of unnecessary work, but later on, when we start adding more and more code, the fact that we have clear and separate API data types versus internal data types is going to pay off. So let's see what Junie can do with this. It's correctly identified that I wanted CRUD. I wasn't sure if it was going to get context if I said CRUD, or it might run me through some kind of sanitation filter or something. Not a fan of it calling the vet request and response types vet DTOs. I think the term DTO is a little bit archaic here, but it's not too bad. I can always refactor that. Ooh, an interesting error down here. Let's just shove that under the carpet and see what happens. I generally don't do command variants for data queries. I'm not sure I like that. It should have just used a string ID parameter and not an entire command to get a vet. All right, so it says it's done. HTTP endpoint is created. We'll see how accurate that is. All right, so we got HTTP endpoint. It's at /vets. There's a component client in there. ACL is open, so that's good. Component client is being injected. We can, if we post to vets, we'll end up creating one. And if we put on a vet ID, it will update it. There's a delete that vet and a get. So in theory, we have all of the functionality that we need in order to manipulate vets. So let's actually see if this is true. I'm going to try and run this service. Theoretically, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so we've got Akka runtime started, so this is good news. Let's do Akka local console. Okay, so the local console is running at 9889. Let me just, I'm lazy, so I will copy that URL. Apologies for the sudden bright light. Okay, so I have my empty service, and I guess that's my fault for not changing that into something meaningful. I got vet entity as a component, and I have vet HTTP endpoint as a component. So if I go to the vet HTTP endpoint, we see I have a nice request creator here. So what route do I want to use? I want to post to create a new vets. I'm going to create a vet called Alice. No headers there. Let me just send that request. Seems like that worked. There's the HTTP post here. And so I sent Alice and I got back Alice. That's exactly what I expected. And we can see that it used the /vets endpoint. And here's all the diagnostic info about the endpoint. More information than you can possibly need. And we see that it called, it created a command called create vet right here. And it sent that command to the event sourced entity, which is an Akka entity, and the reply, all that good stuff. And then we see the event that came out of it, which is com example domain vet events, and so on. And so this is kind of an ugly event type, and that's my fault because I didn't change that either. So let me go back to the code and show you where that is. So let me go to vet event. Let's hide Junie. And you can see I haven't actually used the type name annotation on any of these events. And so I should do that before moving on because I don't want it to, infer that big, long, fully qualified domain name for these event types. So there's some annotations that I want to put on these events. There's probably some refactoring that I might want to do with the vet entity, but by and large, it has done everything that I need to create the CRUD functionality for a single vet. Now, what I still have left to do is do the same thing for customers and the same thing for pets. And then I need to figure out how I want to model the act of a visit. Is that an entity? Is that a workflow? Is that both? So let's see if I've built up enough of a pattern in here between the API, application, and domain folders so that it can just create the pets CRUD functionality from top to bottom, all in one request. So I know that's crazy, but we'll see. So again, I'm just using ID and name because I don't want to get bogged down in trying to figure out whether I've got the right fields and things like that. That kind of stuff is super easy to change on the fly. What I really want to make sure that it's able to do is repeat the work that I just did, but Now it should be able to do this in one prompt rather than what did I do before? Looks like maybe 5 prompts. So here's the real moment of truth. You can see the commands, the parts of the thing that I think are important here is that it's doing a get structure on the vet command, the vet type, the vet entity, HTTP endpoint. It's getting that structure so that, because these models are really just, big giant autocomplete engines, it should be able to do a pretty simple inference between, the existing pattern for vets and what that pattern looks like for pets. This should save me a pile of copy pasting and then likely another half hour worth of fixing my copy paste errors. So it's going to build the entire project now. It's created pet DTOs and pet HTTP endpoint. Now I'm going to do something even more crazy. I'm just going to YOLO this, and I'm not even going to look at the classes it generated. I'm just going to come over here. Oops. I'm going to close that. Let's try and build it and run it again. Yeah. So I didn't do anything. I just hoped that things were working. And so you see it's discovered 2 HTTP endpoints. I've got the vet HTTP endpoint that we knew about, and it's created a pet HTTP endpoint, started the service on the same spot. Local console knows about empty service, which is good. So let's go back to all services here. Just gonna hit refresh. So now my empty service has a pet entity, a vet entity, a vet HTTP endpoint, and a pet one. So I can create a request here. I get, get, put, delete, post, all the ones that I expected to get. I'm going to create a new pet here. And I'm going to create a pet called a Rover, which is a stereotypical pet name. Send request. Man, I can't believe how fast that is. I keep thinking it's broken. So the HTTP post, I sent Rover. I got Rover back as expected. Here's all of the myriad detail on the endpoint. It sent create pet. It went to the event sourced entity, the pet, the component ID for this entity is pet. And we've got the event properties here that it emitted. And let's just take a look real quick at pet entity. So you can see that I've got Rover in here. There's the state. And here's the list of events for Rover. You can see that it's got one, the pet event, pets added. And again, some of the naming conventions that it's deciding to do on my behalf are not what I would have done, but again, the event types, this ID here, I can change that with an annotation. So I will probably clean that up before I do another video in this series. But everything seems to be working pretty well here. Let me go over to vet entity. And oh, that's right. Between runs, the state for the Akka service has disappeared. So let me go to the vet endpoint here. Forgot to create a new vet here. Oops. All right, so it looks like Alice should be there. So let me go to vet entity and refresh here. So here is Alice. And the event that created Alice is, the event that produced Alice is right here. So Yeah, that's all working pretty well. So let's see what we got here. We have pets and vets, and it's starting to sound like a children's rhyme. So let's see what we can do here. Close all these tabs. So what I'm missing now in terms of basic data structures is the customer. And so again, if I've established enough of the right patterns for how to examine the existing structure and infer what the new target structure looks like, I should be able to do the same thing for customers all in one shot. So let's go back here. I probably don't need to remind it to follow the existing patterns, but I can't help myself. I'm generally too precise and too verbose, but uh, seems like Junie is fairly tolerant of my proclivities. Okay, so now I've decided to go ahead and use the CRUD acronym since it appears as though Junie understands what I'm trying to accomplish with that. So I'll hit this button here, and it's already decided that it's going to create event source customer entity with full CRUD API. I do like how it translates my prompt into this one sentence overview. So it 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 gives me an idea of what pieces of my prompts are meaningful to Junie and which ones aren't. And again, I'm using Junie, but I have it configured pointing at uh, yes, I believe I'm just using the internal, whatever Junie's default model is, and I'm on the Junie Ultimate. But you could be doing the same thing using Claude or GPT or Cursor or whatever tool you find most convenient. We provide this Akka context directory here so that regardless of what agent you're using or what chat assistant you're using, it has enough information to help you build stuff. And like you've seen in this video, if you start from scratch, sometimes you need to go through the smaller motions and sort of teach it how to build the vertical slice of what you want to build. And then once you have that in place, it should be easy to ask it to repeat that for different types. And that's where some of the time savings comes in, because it would have taken me forever to copy and paste all these things. And like I said, go back and correct all of my copy paste mistakes. So again, I'm just going to YOLO this. I'm not even going to look at my entities. Going to compile and run this. And we now have 3 HTTP endpoints. We have the vet HTTP endpoint, the customer, and the pet. So we also know that it's still running there. Let me just pop over into the console. And again, like I said, every time I kill the service and start it again, at least when I'm running locally, I lose all of my state. So let me go into the empty service here. There are no customers, as expected. I'm going to go create a new customer first. Let's just create me as a customer. There we go, as expected. So let me go up to services, customer entity. There we go. So now I have the Kevin customer, and like we saw before, here's the event that produced it. So now I can go to the vet endpoint, and I'm going to create a new vet. If I can type properly. Back to services here. Now I'm going to go to pet. Go to the creator here. And I'm going to recreate the rover pet. Again, crazy fast here. So all of the request flow is what I would expect. And so now when I go back here, I look at my customer entity. I have me as a customer. When I look at pets, I have Rover as a pet. And when I look at vets, I have Alice as a vet. So the buildup here has been that the sort of higher order functionality that I want for Pet Clinic is only going to be possible now that I have the 3 core entity types. So in order to have a visit with a vet by a customer for a pet, I need those 3 entities. And so what I'm thinking is that I will have a visit entity, possibly, that has references to the pet, the vet, and the customer. Again, I'm starting to sound like a Dr. Seuss thing here. And so when it has those references, I am going to want to try, I need to figure out what I want to do for modeling it. And so I think that makes it a pretty good stopping point for the first part in this video. And so I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to put some thought into what I want to design, what I want to build for the visit functionality, and then I'll create another video right from where I left off.